On behalf of the students, staff, and faculty of our school, I'd like to express our sincere condolences to Arol's family and friends. Arol Shack worked at the Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences at Case Western Reserve University for over 21 years. Her official hire date at the university was January 6, 1986. Arol was the linchpin of the doctoral program. She worked with 7 doctoral program chairs with very different strengths, personalities, and organizational styles, and she got along with each one. Chairs came and went, but Arol, the heart and soul of the doctoral program, stayed on. Arol had nothing but praise for people she worked with. A few months ago, I asked Arol who her favorite chair was. She said, "They all had strong points in their own way, even you." Arol is beloved by students. From the moment a student requested information about our doctoral program, Arol Shack was on the case. Of course, the student had no idea what they had just tapped into and unleashed, a world-class concierge service. Whatever students needed, Arol made sure they had it. The best preschool for your toddler, housing, tell me the type and size you need, want to rent or buy, babysitters, restaurants for your anniversary, a pulmonary specialist. For students, Arol had all the answers and would stop at nothing to make their lives better. It was mutual admiration. Over the years, she was honored by students in a number of ways, including awards and an endowment fund in her name started last year. In her office hangs a plaque from students with the following words: "For Arol, from the first summer to the last, she has been there. When we were flooded with self-doubt, she wades out to anchor us. When we are lost, she navigates. When we forget why we are here, she smiles. When we need to remember how to listen, we study her. It doesn't take a PhD to see that Arol has always been there in our hearts and always will be. Always. Thank you, Arol." Arol is also revered by staff and faculty. Here are the words used to describe Arol by those who she's worked with here at our school: caring, gracious, engaging, nurturing, optimistic, always willing to pitch in, artistic, fashionable, considerate, loving, and a tenacious advocate for students. Arol was a role model for women, mastering the balance among family, friends, work, and play. When stopping in Arol's office, you could always look at the latest family pictures and catch up on the exploits of her sons, Greg and Howard, her daughter-in-law, Julia, and her 2 grandchildren, Etta Ray and Dexter. You always found yourself sharing family stories and the joys of parenthood and grandparenthood. Arol also had an artistic side. She was the curator of our school's art. Arol met with and selected artists to display their works on our walls. She also served as their agent, suggesting the purchase of artwork to those who expressed even passing interest. Arol herself often wore artsy clothes and jewelry. She was always fashionably attired and perfectly put together, a model of style and grace. And how did Arol manage to do all these things with such seeming ease? She had the best of all possible consultants, David Shack. David ran the numbers and proofread her reports, was by her side at school dinners and celebrations, and became in his own right a member of our school's family. And yes, that new necklace, bracelet, or pair of earrings worn by Arol was often supplied by David. If there's a heaven, it's surely a better place now that Arol's arrived. Friendlier, happier, more organized, and better decorated. Students, of course, get priority accommodations.
This is a hard gathering for all of us. And David, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I thank you for that. I thank all of your family. We're all here because Arol was part of our lives. For many of you, she was part of your life for many, many years. I had the good fortune to enter her life, and she'd enter mine 5 years ago when I joined the Mandel School. I think Arol was actually the first person to greet me on that first day of work. It happened to be my birthday. She didn't know that, but she gave me a wonderful greeting. I was a little nervous, the new guy, and yet she made me feel at ease. And indeed, that continued. For me and for many of us, Arol was the first person to greet us every day. It was with a smile, a little wave, and she was always in a good mood. Now, I can't say that for me and all of my colleagues, but Arol certainly was. And she was really a role model for all of us. For everything that we might be doing, she let us know that we're here because we have important work to do, but also we're here to have fun and to enjoy ourselves. She leaves many good memories for all of us. Most of all, I remember her kindness and her thoughtfulness. I've had the good fortune to be the recipient of notes that have come into the school after we sent out word of Arol's passing, and I'll be sharing those with you, David. And these notes have come not only from the Cleveland community, but from across our country, and even from around the world. Within 30 minutes after the notice first went out, I had a notice from Uganda, and it was simply, "We're in tears." She touched so many of us. Mark Singer mentioned her role as the art curator at the school. For those of you who've had an opportunity to visit the school, you've noticed that just as Arol was very adept at her own decorations and her jewelry and her own clothing, she also cared about how our school looked. And it was part of her vision that we should use the space in the building to make it a more joyful place. And so we have permanent art, but also we have artwork that's brought in from community artists and also from people in art therapy workshops and in other areas. The artwork makes it a very special place at the school, a pleasant place for all who work there. But more importantly to me is that in this job that Arol took on, out of her love for art, she really was concerned about the mission of the school. Ours is a mission of social justice and empowering people in their communities. She reached out to people whose artwork represented those who did not have a voice, those who are mentally ill, those who have perhaps been abused, children, women, people who've been trafficked, and they were given a voice through this artwork. I was contacted this morning by a leader of one of these workshops whose work of her clients are now represented on the walls. And she expressed to me her great sorrow. But then she said, "I want to continue what Arol's doing. Let me know what I can do to help." And I'll tell you that this mission that Arol had for not only bringing beauty into our school, but giving people in the community a voice, people who do not ordinarily have a voice, is a mission that will continue. It's part of her legacy and one that we honor. Arol has a very rich legacy. On Monday morning, we happened to have a faculty meeting just after we received word. And I'm glad we did, because it was a time when we had an opportunity to share our thoughts about Arol. It was amazing to be in that room and to hear 40 people sharing their thoughts of how she touched their lives and how they were moved by her. She made our work life a better place. She also cared about us as people. She knew my family. She knew what my children were doing. She gave me advice. Sometimes I didn't have to ask. She had good advice. One of the last note that she wrote to me was the best place to get wings in Cleveland. She discovered I liked wings. I'll keep that note. That's very special because it shows how much she cared. Her legacy is also through the students whom, as they describe, she mothered. She mothered in the best sense. She was there for them. She took care of them. She listened to them. We have students who come here. Some of them spend 6 weeks during the summertime. They leave behind their families, their children, their spouse, people who depend upon them. They have special needs. Arol was sensitive to that, and she listened to it. These people now are out in the fields. They're working professionally, but Arol has provided a role model to them. Many have written to say they would not have finished their degree without Arol. They would not be doing the work that they're doing now without the role that she played in their lives. That's part of her legacy. It's a legacy that crosses the country and reaches out around the world. For all of us who've known her, we feel her in our hearts. I know that when I'm interacting with students, I'll be thinking, well, am I being as conscious of their needs as I can be? Arol isn't here now to take care of them. I have that special responsibility. I have something to live up to. She's a wonderful person. She's a person who still feels very much a part of my life, and I know she'll be there for many, many years. As I was composing my thoughts for today, I thought, what can I say about Arol? And Arol spoke to me. In fact, I saw Arol. She was smiling, and she said, "Say something nice, Cleve." And she smiled, a big smile. And I thought, well, that's easy. It's easy to say something nice about Arol. Could there be a nicer person? Could there be a person who had more of an impact? The last few days, particularly, have been very somber at the school. We've shared tears, but more importantly, we've shared stories about Arol. And as those stories were told, smiles would appear on our faces, smiles that were reflecting our memories. We remember her smile, her laughter, and her gentle kidding. She cared for all of us, and we're better for having known her.
I wish all of you could take a turn up here and see what I'm seeing. All of you spent time with my mom. You all shared something with her and were a part of her life. And to see you all here looking up at me is really pretty overwhelming and wonderful all at the same time. A couple days ago, a good friend of mine asked me if I was going to speak today, and I told him that I wanted to, but that I had no idea what I would say. He told me that I didn't need to say much, that Mom's life and her spirit and her energy and all the connections she shared with all of you would speak volumes more than I ever could. My mother was many things to many, many people, and I want to take just a minute to quietly reflect on that. I'd ask those of you that are comfortable doing it to just close your eyes and just listen to some of the things that Mom was. My mother was a wife, a life partner, a mother, a sister, a daughter, a mother-in-law, an aunt, cousin, an old friend, a co-worker, a traveling companion, a prom date, a walking partner, a card player, a confidant. Mom was a party planner, an organizer, an art coordinator, a boating companion. She was that voice on the other end of the phone who was thinking a lot more about you than of herself. And she was a grandmother who made the best oatmeal chocolate chip cookies in the world. To my brother, Gregory, and I, of course, she was a doting mother who worried about us and reminded us to do things like send thank you notes and wear a warm jacket and a hat. She was also our biggest fan and probably thought we could fly. Well, Mom, I haven't figured out how to fly yet, but whenever I think about you, it'll make me want to try.
Thank you for those beautiful words, those moving, elegant, eloquent remembrances. My dear David, Gregory, Howard, and Julia, dear Janet, Margie, and David, dear family, dear friends, one evening, just 3 weeks ago, as Arol, David, and Gregory were relaxing and watching TV, Arol turned to Greg and, out of the blue, said, "When I die, I want them to play Louis Armstrong's song, 'What a Wonderful World.'" It seemed like such a bizarre request at the time. Who could have imagined that one who was so vital, so full of life and energy, who was always doing, going, planning, moving, who was concerned only for the health and well-being of others, never herself, who worried about David and her mother, her sisters, and her children, who was planning the 50th reunion of her Heights High School class, who was program central for parties and celebrations of all kinds, who was surrogate mother and mother superior for hundreds of students from all over the world, could lie before us today, her life cut short, leaving each of us stunned, recoiling from the reality that confronts us, incredulous that we are here. And what of her strange request? Was it coincidence? Premonition? Guidance, perhaps? I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Arol was, in fact, born into a wonderful world. As the first of Irving and Rhoda Gold's 3 daughters, Janet and Marjorie would follow. She was a dynamo from the start. An attractive, vivacious, outgoing child, even as a toddler. She was independent, active, always moving, and into everything. She couldn't sit still from her first days to her last. I think her grandchildren are very much in her tradition. It was almost as if she knew from the beginning that she had to squeeze a lot of living into too few years. It is remarkable that her mother had more children after her because she couldn't keep up with Arol. Her father, on the other hand, was a real character himself, with a zest for life that Arol inherited. He was a musician, a jazz trumpeter with his own band in the 30s, who was known to play the longest Tekiah Gedolah on the shofar in the whole country. He eventually left music to go into business with his brother, Dan. He worked until he was 80, a vital, energetic, original, until his death at 86. I still remember how he would sometimes come to Temple with Arol. He always enjoyed the music. I see them bloom for me and you. The Gold girls, Arol, Janet, and Margie, were all born on the west side of Cleveland, where theirs was the only Jewish family they knew. When Arol was about 11 years old, they moved to University Heights, where she blossomed as a very social, extroverted, fun-loving student. In junior high, she joined one of the girls' clubs, STG, standing for Sisters, True and Good, which carried her through high school as well. She had legions of friends, boys and girls, and was at the center of every social event. This dark-haired beauty was fun-loving and always on the go. Her activity level was further encouraged by her father when he returned from a trip to Chicago with a white Rambler convertible for his 16-year-old daughter. She was the embodiment of a 1950s teenager. She loved parties, outings, events, and was often the organizer who made sure that everything happened. In later years, it was always Arol who organized the class reunions and milestone birthday parties in Las Vegas. She wasn't happy unless she was active, and she was happiest when her activity revolved around a social event or gathering. She also loved to entertain. It was a wonderful world she lived in, frequently because of her efforts at making it so. This strong-minded, strong-willed woman had a way of sweeping up everyone in her enthusiasm and her planning. If Arol was organizing, no one wanted to miss the occasion. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright, blessed day, the dark, sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Arol knew she was blessed and felt a strong religious connection all of her life. As a child growing up, the family would gather weekly without fail for Shabbat dinners at her parents' Rhoda and Irving's house. Her Aunt Esther and Uncle Harry were always included, and as the grandchildren arrived, Gregory and Howard, as well as Jeremy, Eliza, and Jonathan, the growing family would continue to gather to welcome the Sabbath. Arol and David were among the very first people I met upon arriving in Cleveland almost 28 years ago. Howard was just about to celebrate becoming bar mitzvah, and Arol wanted to be sure that we would not be strangers to each other when the big day arrived. I was warmly welcomed upon coming to Cleveland, but Arol and David were the only parents of an upcoming bar or bat mitzvah student who did that. I still remember the delightful evening we spent, and even the strawberry pie she served for dessert. I also remember that she kept a kosher home, one of the few members of our congregation who did so. She herself celebrated becoming a bat mitzvah in Israel 10 years ago on February 1st, 1997, during a Federation mission there. It was during that trip that a former student of the Mandel School, a Catholic Israeli, drove 4 hours with his wife and children in order to see her and share a meal with her. It should not be surprising that one who couldn't sit still, who was always active and on the go, loved to travel. The world revealed itself at its most wonderful when she was visiting destinations near and far. When David was stationed in Nuremberg, Arol joined him, and during the year and a half of his army service, they traveled all over Europe. For almost 30 years, they had a summer home in Chautauqua, where Arol loved to go almost every weekend. They loved the house, loved the boat, loved that their children grew up there, loved the friends they had up there as well, including their longest friends from Cleveland, Linda and Paul Ripner. At one point in David's career, they had the opportunity to travel to baseball conventions and winter games in such places as Hawaii and Florida. Arol lived for the sun, and we know that it is shining today because of her in the middle of this cold winter. David and Arol enjoyed traveling as a family, both planned and unplanned. They took a great family trip for a month out west, which was planned for immediately after Howard's bar mitzvah. Then there was the time when Gregory and Howard went with their grandfather to take their parents to the airport, fully expecting to return home with him after dropping them off. Upon arriving at the airport, Arol produced 2 extra tickets and packed suitcases for the boys to go with them. She loved surprises, loved conceiving, planning, and producing them, whether surprising the Ripners in the Dominican Republic or providing Greg with all of the staples he ran out of and that he needed in his apartment, unasked for. Arol made this a wonderful world. She was thoughtful, generous, giving, nurturing. She always looked for the positive in people and rejoiced in their accomplishments. For all of her ability, she was modest and grounded, without ego or pretense of any kind. She was the original multitasker and could do all of her tasks not only quickly, but well. She would have her house clean and neat with all chores done before she left for work in the morning and could have a full-course dinner on the table at night in 12 minutes. She was organized, efficient, and always effective. For some years, I used to have a standard exchange with her. I would ask her if by some miracle she might be available to come work at Fairmount Temple. She would always reply, "You can't pay me enough." Anyone who knew her in her working world, as you have heard both Dr. Singer and Dr. Gilmore describe, knew that money was the least of what motivated her. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, "How do you do?" They really say, "I love you." Arol received letters from former students at MSAS who are now all over the world. Everyone says essentially the same thing. Arol Shack made the difference. She made each of them feel embraced, important, cared about. If it wasn't for you, they would write, "I would never have made it through the program." She even enlisted David to pick up prospective students at the airport. She had the enviable ability to make friends with anyone and everyone. She perceived no distinctions of race or status among people. She was as highly regarded by her bosses as she was by the workmen she met on her travels. She was genuinely interested in others and listened, really listened to what each person had to say. She loved people, and that is why she had so many friends, some from childhood and some from just last week. And sometimes, to the absolute consternation of her loved ones, she would give her telephone number to strangers she had befriended. The colors of the rainbow. She loved the arts, music, shows, the theater, movies. As friend Sandy Zelvi observed, she loved to go anywhere, and such entertainment provided the perfect excuse. I hear babies crying. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. She was dating someone else, but he couldn't come home from college for her junior class dance. He suggested that she ask David Shack. She was very popular and somewhat fickle when it came to men. She asked David, and they had a good time. He asked her to his senior prom, and she was never fickle again. Their high school romance blossomed as he went off to Ohio University, where she followed a year later, and as she attended Ohio State as well. They married on May 22nd, 1960, and for a far too brief 46 years, they walked hand in hand as friends, lovers, helpmates, soulmates. They enjoyed a true partnership of shared goals and interests, values and relationships. Out of their love, they welcomed the two greatest treasures of their lives, Gregory and Howard. Both of her sons attest that she was overly protective of them, but they loved her attention and her belief in them. She was active in both the secular and temple PTAs when they were growing up. She was there for them in every possible way. She watched over them and worried about them and enjoyed them, and sent letters, articles, and fabulous care packages when they went away to school. And when Howard met his Julia, Arol welcomed her as a true daughter, never as a daughter-in-law. We are particularly grateful that Arol knew her grandchildren, Dexter and Etta. She loved to visit them and had no problem sending Julia and Howard out of the house when she arrived so that she could be with them. She shared her wisdom with her children as well. She recently told them that one of the things that had made her and David so successful is that she always put David first. She was very clear about her priorities. She was also forthright and honest and not afraid to show her temper if something or someone was out of line. She stood up for what she believed and what she thought was right. She was a true Jewish mother with whom Greg enjoyed a special closeness. She was niece Eliza's fancy aunt because she had lipstick and jewelry. She did not want to grow old, and she loved this life much too much to ever think of dying. She loved her family, adored her friends, gloried in her work, appreciated every aspect of her life. We can well imagine how many times she must have thought to herself, what a wonderful world. Even as our world seems unutterably dark and constricted, we know that she would want us to carry on, to live the lives she helped us create, to become the people she knew us to be, to use our gifts of mind and heart, to enjoy, to explore, to improve the wonderful world she knew awaits us. Zecher Tzadik Livracha. May the memory of this spirited woman be for blessing. And let us say, Amen.